All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Gervonta Tank Davis explodes on Jojo Diaz on Instagram and says, but in truth, they might both be food for Gary Russell Jr. Very unpopular opinion, but we're going to talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back. So we're going to talk about the 130-pound division. Please excuse that beeping. I am in the middle of a power outage in Texas, but I do have a little bit of a generator that is going to allow me to make these couple videos. So you'll hear beeping through this, but just understand that that is what that is. So Jojo Diaz, who is the former IBF 130-pound champion, and Gervonta Davis, who is also the former 130-pound IBF champion, had a war of words that was absolutely bananas, man. It was bananas in a couple ways. First of all, I didn't know that Jojo Diaz was really somebody that Gervonta Davis should take seriously as a competitor. Just maybe 2 weeks ago, yes, for sure, 2 weeks ago, because that was before he lost his belt on the scale. Now, I would not write off Jojo Diaz because he lost his title on the scale, because, hey, man, it also happened to Gervonta Davis. So, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There is, a lot of limitations on what you can do in training. You've seen fighters like David Benavidez miss weight. You've seen guys like Shakur Stevenson for his 126-pound title come in over 130 pounds, right? So, excuse me, there really is a very significant chance that, the weight, the issue with the weight in Jojo Diaz, was related to the pandemic. But regardless, he no longer has his title, right? So when Gervonta Davis is saying, look, man, maybe I should fight you, but you don't have a title, so it's not worth it. That is very, very true. Now, what I think is interesting about this, though, is that when Jojo Diaz says to Gervonta Davis, look, dude, you're just beating up on a bunch of little guys, man. If you really want, to have major competition, step up to some big boys, and fight guys like me. It makes me wonder whether or not Jojo Diaz actually watched the fight he had with Gary Russell Jr. Because last time I checked, Gary Russell Jr. was significantly smaller than you, and you fought him down there at 126 pounds. But yet now you're looking like you might be 135 pounders. So, you can say some things about Gervonta Davis beating up who people say are smaller guys. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen Gervonta Davis fight a smaller guy. He might have fought guys that didn't weigh as much as he did, but I have not seen him fight anybody that I thought was a smaller guy. In fact, I was ringside for the fight with between he and Leo Santa Cruz, and Leo Santa Cruz looked way bigger than Gervonta Davis when those guys walked in that ring. It was actually pretty shocking to see the size difference, which if you looked at the fight between Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz, a lot of people thought that, Leo Santa Cruz was winning the first 6 rounds or so because he was, connecting with the jab. And, he was touching Gervonta a good bit. Gervonta had red marks all on his, the top of his head after the fight, all scuff marks on his cheek. However, Gervonta Davis did not let that, length and height advantage bother him at all. He just got into a high guard, blocked stuff off, went right to the gut, and wound up, getting Leo Santa Cruz out of there with a supremely accurate uppercut, dude, that completely twisted that dude's head and dropped him. So, Gervonta Davis fighting the guy Leo Santa Cruz's pedigree and Gervonta and Jojo Diaz fighting a guy in Gary Russell who has a similar pedigree to Leo Santa Cruz. Unfortunately, we know that he doesn't have as many, championship division titles as Leo Santa Cruz does. But hey, man, that might actually have something to do with the fact that Leo Santa Cruz was ducking Gary Russell Jr. than anything else. The idea, though, that Jojo Diaz is going to present any problems to Tank is absolutely silly. However, I would like to, put this out there. Gary Russell Jr. beat Jojo Diaz handily. Some people would say, well, that would mean or lead me to believe that Jojo Diaz, that Tank, that would be that Gervonta Davis and Jojo Diaz would be easy fight for Gervonta Davis. Although I think it would be the case, not an easy fight, but I think he'd win. I think there's a chance that both of those guys might lose to Gary Russell Jr. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but if you look carefully at the technique, the fighting style, the approach that Gary Russell Jr. takes to fights, whether it be against guys like Lomachenko, who he fought very, very well. And I do believe he actually dropped Vasily Lomachenko in that fight. But that's a Vasily Lomachenko that's fighting several weight classes, who is a much bigger guy than Gary Russell Jr. Go back and look at the pictures of Lomachenko standing next to Gary Russell Jr. and you'll see it looks something like that. It was a significant height and size advantage, and he went 12 rounds. I think he lost by a majority decision, which was, Lomachenko won on 2 cards, and it was a draw on the third, if I recall correctly. But regardless, for certain that Gary Russell Jr. is significant skilled enough of a fighter to give Vasily Lomachenko his money's worth in a weight class that was actually that Lomachenko was oversized for. So when I look at and I think, okay, well, how do you match the style of Gervonta Davis with Jojo Diaz? Well, we don't have to do that because he already beat him. But match the style of Gary Russell Jr. with Gervonta Tank Davis, and I think you'll see that there's going to be a lot of problems for Tank. Because if Tank can get touched by jabs and stuff by Leo Santa Cruz, so will Gary Russell Jr. But I doubt very, very highly that Gervonta Tank Davis will be able to just switch and start walking Gary Russell down, hoping to catch him with some big uppercut, that is going to end the night for him. And make up for maybe some deficits that Gervonta Davis has in his skill set compared to Gary Russell Jr. And again, I know these are that these may be unpopular opinions, but look, I haven't missed a lot of calls and fights in the last couple years. I do believe that the last fight that I really got wrong was Mikey Garcia versus Adrian Bronner. And even then I was like, I just thought that Adrian Bronner could put up a better fight against Mikey than he did. But hey, I was wrong. But check the date on that fight and check the date now. I've not missed a lot since then. And although I am not a professional matchmaker, I consider myself to be, very much an amateur at that, because, the amateur is you don't get paid for it. I'm telling you that is a bad style matchup for Tank Davis, and the excuse for not fighting him is what is always going to be the inactivity. But regardless, as far as it goes with Gervonta Davis and Jojo Diaz just pretty much needs to kick rocks because, man, get out of here. You're not beating that dude and you lost your belt. Get another shot at that IBF belt and then Tank may fight you. And quite honestly, it might be a good fight and the type of fight that Mayweather and them would like for Tank. We don't know. But anyway, I just thought I would cover that because there's a lot of subscribers that reached out to me and said, man, Fanon, please do a video about this, man, because Jojo Diaz is losing his mind. Anyway, so there you have it. That's my opinion on the matter. You let me know yours. And with that, I'm out. Peace.